Hello to the TikTok audience and the YouTube audience. We are officially live, and we're proud to bring you on the Kink Educator channel. We're going to be here doing Power Exchange Together. I didn't get enough coffee today. Let me get another sip. We have Alice joining us. For those of you on the YouTube, you see Alice's icon. For those who don't, we're on TikTok. Alice, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Wandering Alice, Alice for short. Been in the kinky lifestyle for over a decade at this point and been joining for these kind of educational discussion sessions with Mr. Anderson for quite a while. So happy to have y'all here and happy to be having yet another good discussion, this time on Power Exchange.
Now, Power Exchange Together is something brought to us by Beyond Leather, so shout out to them. It is a program that is meant to talk about dynamics. We were not given a charter. I've been told I can teach it the way I see fit. But what I liked about PET especially is that you had organizations out there already that we're not going to mention today, but they're more focused on leather. They're more focused on, the master-slave aspect. This gives us an opportunity to talk about power dynamics with littles, middles, and caregivers. We can talk about pet play a lot more. I know leather covers that, but we don't always see it covered, especially on social media. We're going to be able to cover, bratting, something that's not really seen a lot in mass because it's master and slave do what told. We're going to go beyond that. We're going to talk a lot more about it. This is not meant to be a BDSM 101 course, nor a BDSM 001 course. If you're new to this, some of this might be confusing. You're in luck. A lot of what we'll talk about is in our playlists or will be. So go to the Kink Educator channel. Underneath on the actual channel where the main profile is, underneath all the info and right above the first videos is a playlist. Go to BDSM 001 and 101. If you want anything. Today is the beginning of it, and I begin everything we do from BDSM 001 to 101 with a conversation with all of you. I want to hear what you want us to cover. This is a monthly thing. I don't know what day of the month it's going to be. Me and Alice are going to talk behind the scenes. More than likely, what it'll be, and I'm speaking for Alice, so Alice can say whatever she needs to when it comes to this, but we'll do it on a Wednesday. We'll skip a Wednesday, and then we'll do another thing on a Wednesday. So we're going to have once a month days of our kinks of our lives. We'll do one show, and then we'll do one show that is pet. And I think that'll give every month a nice kind of feel to it. The education will be there. We won't wear out days of the kinks of our lives too quickly. It'll give us more time. So someone asked us how little space is essential for some. I don't understand that. Could you, for age regression, that we could talk about that. Not as much here on TikTok. So here's the thing. There's certain things we're only going to be able to talk about on YouTube. It's TikTok rules. Age regression is one of those things that the AI could very quickly not get right. So at the end of this, we will invite people to come over to the YouTube channel and continue asking us questions. And we may even, honestly, allow you on as a guest. Alice, did I miss anything? Anything that you heard me kind of goof on?
No, I think the only other thing I add is one of the really exciting parts about this that I like is the idea of, say, the extra variety for dynamics that are not so straightforward, right? So you might have how do I explain it? The dominant little with a submissive caretaker. It allows for a lot more flow than you see in some of those more traditional dynamic conversations.
Exactly. And we want to do that. We want to bring you guys the ideas and talk about things that sometimes get lost in the shuffle, especially with BDSM 101 being our focus this summer. We want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to ask about your dynamics. This is a very personal conversation. And of course, here comes the disclaimer. As someone who just got outed today, believe it or not, I want to warn you that putting public information into a public space is very dangerous. It will be used against you, and someone won't care how they use it. And to this day, outing someone is something that for some reason the community forgot is super dangerous, and accountability is very lax. So just like the predators, I guess, who are very lax. So please be careful. If you come onto our show, please don't use a channel that you go and you're teaching Sunday school and using this channel to comment. That could run you amok, especially if you come on as a guest, because if you come on as a guest, people know your voice too. If you think your voice is very noticeable, be very careful. There's a real situation of outing and harm. This is why we allow people to do messages. If you don't want your information out there, your voice out there, your face out there, just send us a message and use accounts that can't be traced back to you. It's always good to have a different account, even on YouTube. Simple to make an account, simple to make an extra TikTok account. I know it sounds like a pain in the ass. This is your risk profile. Like for me, I understand my risk profile. My face is here. It's not actually very hard to find information out about me, but there are certain things that I have been able to keep private. And that's why I do the things the way I do the things. But there are many people on here who will come around and try to out people and just be toxic. So please be very careful with the information you share in your communities. With that said, I don't want to drone on. Do we have any questions about dynamic building? We're going to start at the very beginning, and I'm going to ask Alice what is probably the most charged question we get. Alice, how long until you should start building a dynamic? In other words, building a fundamental sit-down conversation, start to build a dynamic.
Ooh, that's a very loaded question. So to me, as soon as you basically agree or declare or declare and get agreement that you're interested in pursuing something more than an acquaintance or a friendship with somebody in the realm of kinky play partners, you can start the conversation on what an ideal dynamic looks like for you with that person. It can be part of your vetting process. It's not so much the part of vetting that person as in, are they a safe person? It's more the vetting of, are they a good fit for me? And so some of those early conversations can include what kind of power exchange or dynamic you may want to get into. If, say, everything's green all the way, where do you want to go? So I don't think there's any real limit other than you both have to be in agreement that you're open to this conversation and ready to have it.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with, believe it or not, Amazon chick who I saw said day one. I think on day one, if the minute I start thinking about someone, and I think, Alice, you know this, I've said it many times, they start filling out paperwork. I literally sit down, and I actually made a book, and I've used a different version, but I've used, I actually think I used this one too, the Desire Index, to kind of negotiate with someone. Great for, I don't like pickup play, and I should say that. I personally don't like pickup play. I am neurodivergent, and I'm demisexual. It's not a great mix when it comes to pickup play. But this, to play with me, outside of some very simple play, this is what you'll have to fill out. This is just basic. For anyone who's read my BDSM survey, you realize how intense that can be. And by the way, they're free right now. Go to Kink 4, number 4, like the Fantastic Four. It's been all over television. That 4, all, ALL, like the dish detergent, .space. The newest thing put on there has the links, 2 free downloads, and the vanilla curiosity. I invite you all to partake in it and to be part of it. And that's for me, day one. Now, I'm not saying Alice is wrong, because there is complexity. Just because on day one I begin debating building the foundation, trust, communication, all that, it does not mean I'm heading towards things like CNC. It doesn't mean I'm going to start calling it a dynamic. The first things are to know your partners, and Alice said it perfectly. Their play profile, their risk profile, that's all that. It's not, the stuff I'm giving you doesn't tell you how to build a dynamic, because every dynamic is going to be very different, very interesting, and it's also going to have to do with the amount of knowledge someone has even going into it. And just because someone else has done something to you does not mean it'll feel the same. Technique, strength, all of these things can change the experience really quickly. And you just got to be prepared for what's going to be ahead of you. And things like CNC, that's 6 months. That's at least 6 months to me, because
Yeah.
you really got to trust your partner. Go ahead, Alice.
Well, and that's where, at least where I was saying, for me, day one is you kind of need to share your must-haves, so to speak. If a must-have for you is 24/7 and the other person is like, I only want to be in a dynamic when we're in those play moments, well,
Bedroom.
fundamentally you don't mesh. So some of those you need to bring out your must-haves and your would like tos, whether that's I think I might like this, I don't know, or I would like to build to a point in trust where maybe CNC becomes on the table. You can present those, but be very careful about what is a I'd like to have as opposed to a must have.
Absolutely. And, a lot of this class is going to be assumed that we have a dynamic. So, and that's going to be the whole program. So, and you don't, by the way, I don't want to say to anyone here that you have to be in a dynamic to attend these classes. I don't think that's true. I think sometimes getting knowledge before you get into something like that is even better for you. You might not be able to immediately administer it into or work it into your dynamic, but when you're ready, isn't it better to be ready? Like, do you want to start building the porch and then realize you don't have a saw, you don't have the wood, you don't have the nails, all you have is an idea? Or would it be better to be prepared to go? And that's why a lot of education matters. That's why we talk about it. Go ahead, Alice.
Exactly. You need to know what the blueprint is before you start actually trying to physically build the object. In this case, the dynamic.
Absolutely. So a lot of this is going to be about the dynamic. How do we build it better than it is? Where do we start? And today we're going to talk about that. So we're going to make the assumption that you figured out with another person you want to be in a dynamic. What you want to do is not fill out a contract. Contracts, throw them out. If you filled one out, throw it out. Start over. Contracts always come from dangerous places. People have sadly, they're no longer with us because of contracts. That'll never be taught in this show. Instead, you want blueprints. You're building something. You're together, you are building something. You're making blueprints. What do you think some of the top things people need to put into that dynamics? We're going to talk ground floor now. You guys have broken dirt. You've decided to build. Alice, where do you think they should start?
Number one for me is what you call porch time. You need to, at the very beginning, define how do we call a timeout on the dynamic, especially if you're doing something 24/7, where I need to have a conversation with you where the roles aren't a part of this. This is just me as a human talking to my partner as a human. It's not me talking to my dominant or talking to my submissive. We're having a conversation. Set up how both or all participants enact the need for that even playing field dynamic is dropped time for conversation. You've always called it porch time from, I don't know if that's you or Evie Lupine, but make sure you set up that time to converse.
Now, some people also call this kitchen table time for obvious reasons with the polyamory crossover with kink. I don't necessarily think that's a great one for us to kind of use. Even when we talk about outing, I always say out of the dungeon, because while it is very similar, there's a difference between being outed as kinky and being outed as queer, right? So we try to stay. I say outing, and if someone goes, "You mean like LGBTQ moment?" I'm like, no, like out of the dungeon, different, dangerous, the same. But I don't know of anyone who has to risk their actual life being in this community. That's why we don't. We tread very carefully with our words. Now, I have thought about this because you're right, Alice. I've been using someone else's terminology, and I hate using other people's terminology. You know that. I'm an inventor of all new acronyms and stuff. I was thinking about starting to call it garage time because you're tuning up your dynamic.
I think that works. And I mean, we need, because we talk so often, we hold these sessions so often, we need a term for us to keep talking about it as we go. And I think garage time is fine, or dynamic break time is something I've used in the past. But even that one, I get it can have some energy behind even those phrases, right? And at the end of the day, for everybody joining us, come up with whatever term works best for you to describe this time. And a lot of times, whatever that is, I like to use it as kind of the safe word, so to speak, to enact the need for it. Not saying right now we're going to stop and we're going to have that conversation. But if I say, hey, I need garage time sometime this weekend, I have set the expectation that at some point in this weekend, we need to carve out time from the schedule to sit down for, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, to have that deep conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Teachable is always different than personal. We have a word in my dynamic. I'm not going to share it because it's personal. But when that is said, when either one of us say, hey, can I have this conversation in this mode? It tells us both. The other person is putting away all of their reaction. We get very mindful. We listen. We think. Because we know the other person is making themselves vulnerable in the moment. They are trying to let us know of something. That's why I would stay away from things like dynamic break that can send like fear things. There's not, ask any man, and this is a generalization and a bit of a joke, but also true. Ask any man how, I will go with the cis straight, right? Cis straight man, about when a woman says we need to talk. The panic that a man will have, just, you have no idea.
I'll tell you right now, it's not just a man thing. I'm very much a cis woman, but with my past history, both in romantic relationships and in childhood and life, if somebody says we need to talk or I need to talk to you, instant panic anxiety, to the point where like me and my partner have both agreed we will never do that to each other because it just sets both of us off in the same way.
Like a hard limit for me. I'm like, don't. And if you're mad at me, have the fight. If you need a few minutes before you have the fight, even if you need an hour to figure out why you're mad at me, talk to me, say you're mad at me, tell me I'm okay. Because if you don't, passive aggressive shit does not fly well with my neurodivergency. And these are the things that you should be working out, especially in your mechanics. I like garage time for teaching because, and this is, I'm not kidding you, Alice, I'm not kidding. And I can't laugh when this is asked, because I laugh not because of the privilege behind what I'm about to say, because I understand it. So when I was teaching porch time, I don't think you were on that night. So I was like, yeah, Evie Lupine says porch time. It's, you go out to the porch and you have a conversation. And someone was like, well, what if I don't have a porch? And I was like, oh, shit. Because I thought the same thing. Like, I figured it out real quick when they were talking. But I was like, but what if you don't have a porch? And then kitchen table was another one people use. That's why I like garage, because when you have a problem, not everyone has a garage at home, but when you have a car problem, when you have a mechanical issue, you take your car to the garage. So I think it's just more universal. And it's more teachable in that way.
Or you almost go with human time. I need some human time. I'm not a submissive. I'm not a dominant. I'm a human. I need time with you as a human.
And sometimes it's it has nothing to do with the dynamic. And this is
Right.
where 24/7 people get mad when this is brought up. But they're always my slave. They always listen. An appendix breaks. It don't care what you're calling yourself. You're going to a hospital. I have had friends who are like, they had to tranquilize me to cut my collar off because it had the lock in it, and they wanted to wait for they're not letting someone in an emergency room to take a fucking collar off. What they're going to do is they're going to inject you. You have to understand it's not healthy to not have, think of your dynamic, and this is brand new. I'm just thinking of it now. If you're in a 24/7 dynamic, you're in a submarine with the person. But every so often, that submarine's going to have to come up and see what's going on with the outside world. The outside world will affect your dynamics. It'll affect your relationships. That we could be going into very rough times because of things that we're not going to talk about tonight, just going around the world. That can affect things. Supply chains, the quarantine, all these things had major effects on relationships. You need, I don't care what you call it, just have a way to talk human to human, roles suspended. That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
Great starting point, Alice. Wonderful.
Well, and I think a very practical example of this that is less of an illiterate kind of way of explaining it is a very common thing that people may have in a dynamic, especially if one of them is home more often, is like meeting their dominant at the door when they get home from work, right? I'm just tossing this out as one thing some people will do. If you have an injury that leaves you bedbound, you have to address the fact that that normally established behavior can't be done anymore. And so that's a physical. But if, say, you're having a bad mental health period, you also need to be able to, in a safe way, just be like, listen, I'm not doing well. I can't do XYZ behavior that we had agreed to beforehand. And the same goes for the other way as well. Dominant's can have bad mental health day and just be like, listen, I can't do what I've normally done for you for a little bit because I really just need to take care of myself.
And I wrote this down because it came to me, and this is so important. Doms focus too much on being obeyed far too often, instead of realizing that when someone wants you to be their leader, that's what 24/7 is. You're tagged, you're it, you're the leader. You're leading this dynamic of ours. And instead of worrying about, they're obsessed with being obeyed, instead of really guiding their submissive through things, really kind of building them up. And we're trying to build each other up, because a sub 2 should have the ability to have that porch time, have that garage time to say, hey, in plain language, not sir, may I? And then the sir, you're the dom, just being a dick and be, oh, well, I'm not in the mood tonight, just to assert their authority. This is a quick way to cut through, hey, human to human, I got a problem with you, motherfucker, and we're going to solve it. And yeah, I know it's $7 to a charity on these lives, but I'll pay that dollar, thank you. But let's move on to the next one. What other thing do you think is important, Alice? I've got like 10 that we can go over, but I'd rather let the co-host kind of pick it, because this is the point. We're supposed to be communicating together, exchange together. We did not talk about this. This is all off both the top of our heads.
Ooh. So I think for me, that's the first and foremost, most important thing is to establish that. Because I'm going to assume that you've already at least had some conversation on compatibility. Like, at least, you both want to be 24/7, right? The next thing is...
Or any else. Right now, let's just assume it's a dynamic. Let's not make it a certain dynamic. Let's just talk dynamics. Because porch time, let's talk about the things that apply to every dynamic. Every relationship.
Yeah.
We'll focus that way.
Yeah, I guess where I was thinking next is going over all of like their risk profiles and stuff like that. Are you thinking that's already done?
Well, let's be clear. Let's clear the air right now for everyone watching, for me and Alice, so we know where to take the conversation. If you're building a dynamic, you should know each other's risk profiles, medical history. You should know each other's play profiles. You should have gone through the compatibility, as Alice is talking about. Are you compatible? Are you trying to build something because it's the first person who said you can tie me up and see me naked? That's not a good reason to build a dynamic. Have you gone over your needs, your expectations, your wants? Has things been consented to? Have they been discussed? Do you understand what you are allowed, not allowed to do with your partner? You should have gone through. You're at the point now where, like, to talk vanilla, as a lot of people would know, you've now gone from seeing to actually being in a relationship. And BDSM is like moving in with someone without actually living together. There is that much involved. You're not paying an electric bill, but you're paying for electric toys. So there is this mutual investment in something. You're investing in each other now. It is becoming something. You might not be in love. You might not be looking to get married, but for now, you're hitching your carriage to the horse, as they used to say back 100 years ago, 200 probably. So we're going to assume everyone's done the basic. Once again, that's BDSM. BDSM 101. Let's not. We'll drown if we have to stop to do every one of those, because I already have 50 hours up.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to assume that you did your work and you're building now.
Oh,
I can throw one out if you
throw
want.
it out, because the only thing that keeps coming to my mind is further details on communication style, but that's a long one all in itself.
Yeah, but I like that one because it is true. Because when you first get to know someone, even when you're negotiating, if you're even negotiating right, I'm sure some of you kind of were flirty. You were kind of trying to make them interested in you. If you're going to build a dynamic, this is where honesty has to be turned up.
Oh,
Not cool honesty. I'm not talking about like, oh, I don't like that shirt. It looks ugly. It makes you look fat. Not that kind of honesty. I'm talking the honesty. Stop trying to impress your partner and start impressing them with the information, the feedback. Really let them in on what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Because I swear to you, so many submissives are so busy trying to like, how long can I stay here before I can't feel my finger? Stop white knuckling it. Start dialing in. Because as Doms, if we think you can take that much, it means we're going to take it to the next level. If you said you want a predicament tie, right? We need information to really be able to be in the moment with all of you. So please stop the sugarcoating at this point. Start. What was it the real world used to say? When people stop being fake and start being real. It is that time. You're going to be dynamic.
Yeah. But that's where, for me, I think if you haven't already in part of it, and I do feel like this gets overlooked until you're actually in like a dynamic relationship, is how best to communicate. How frequently do you want me to reach out? Do you want a good night every night and a good morning every morning, or is that too much?
Yeah.
Would you rather have big conversations in person, or would it actually be a little easier for you to do it maybe via a phone call or Zoom or, something else?
FaceTime.
FaceTime. I've suggested to people sometimes to communicate in email. To get everything they need to express out in a way where they don't feel under pressure in the moment to communicate it, and either send it to their partner in an email or keep it in a journal. So I like to establish lines of communication outside of just the garage time.
Yeah, and I like the email. I think we talked about this a few like months and months ago. But when you're writing an email, you're more thoughtful almost. Like it's a different switch in your brain. You send a text, it's usually quick, not thought out. You're just trying to get it off your phone. But an email, someone will read it, they'll get mad, they'll start typing, and then they'll start relaxing and go, no, 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 because we're used to editing our emails, not our text messages. I think email is great, especially if it's something you know will upset a person, but make sure they know, like talk to each other about your communication styles. Are you a person who wants to have serious conversations in the moment and in each other's face, or do you want that like distance? You can think, you can breathe. Not everyone's good right on the fly, and I'm like an aggressive go in and try to really, we're going to finish this in 5 minutes because there's going to be something on TV I want to watch. That's the style I have, which is not a very good style if you're not a manager. If you're a manager at a business, that works great. But in real life, no one wants that, because as a manager, we're going to do what we got to do. It doesn't matter. It does not matter how people feel about a damn thing. This is what we have to do, and I'll be damned if we ain't doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like this is especially critical for those with neurodivergent, who they themselves are neurodivergent, or they have partners that are neurodivergent. Because I have had partners who, due to ADHD, can't actually fully always focus through the entirety of a conversation, or who, due to anxiety, can't actually fully express themselves live in person. And that's where having either a journal entry that they can just keep writing stuff in as the thought pops in their brain, for my ADHD folks, or like you said, an email where you can start it and spend 2 days filling that in and rereading it and making sure it's saying exactly what you need it to say. It gives you a little more space, and that space also gives some emotional distance and sometimes safety for some people to be able to express themselves more authentically than they can in direct face-to-face combo.
Absolutely. Sorry, guys. I'm actually having a power issue on the phone, the charger. This is what I get for buying the cheap cords. This is my fault for not having the more expensive cords. But I absolutely agree with you. And it is something that you want to be very mindful about, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if this one works. But, you know, you always want to feel like the person is focused. And as someone with ADHD, I'll tell you right now, it's not always easy to focus. It's not. I want to. And it's ironic because I was at a meeting for my child. You're not going to love anyone as much. You could tie it maybe, but your child is going to get so much more of your energy all the time, right? So there I am talking about my kid, and we're in the conversation, and it's not that I'm not paying attention, but I'm suddenly feeling like, oh, I'm hungry. What am I going to eat? Yeah, I can do that. And I'm watching them talk, and I'm listening to every word, but I'm planning lunch at the same time. So this teacher, brand new, Jax wasn't getting along with her. And I was like, I just told her. She's like, I don't get Jax. He's so smart, but he won't focus. And she keeps going on at this as I'm planning my lunch. And I look at her and I'm like, do I look like I'm paying attention to you all? And this is a group full of people, all school administrators. And they're like, yeah. I was like, because I had said to her, I was like, he has ADHD. It's just how they are. He's bored. She's like, no, he's engaged. So I asked, do I look bored right now? Do I look like I'm paying attention? They're like, yeah, you're giving great feedback. I was like, I'm planning lunch. I need you to know right now, I am planning lunch. There's nothing more important than my child's future. And I'm still planning lunch while you're all talking. You guys, this could not be a more important topic. I want to talk about lunch in my mind right now. This is a neurodivergent partner, and you all need to know that. And especially the younger the neurodivergent, it takes years to cultivate focusing in and being able to get stuff. And sometimes when you're in an emotional state, your partner is not talking to you like in these moments, and it doesn't feel comfortable. No one's like, oh, good, I'm being told what I've done wrong for the 100th time, especially neurodivergent people. Do you know neurodivergent people have been called names and basically bullied by adults, always being told they're bad, despite it being a medical thing? You know, this neurodivergence is not a joke, especially people with ADHD. There is extra steps with these types of humans that's not even under their control, and they're called bad words. They're told they're bad over 1,000 times, sometimes more than a neurotypical kid. Like, how crazy is that?
So it is.
Patient.
Well, and that kind of rolls into one of the other things that I think at this point, you've gotten to a point where, for the most part, I would say if you have any illnesses you have not disclosed, including any kind of mental health issues or concerns, at this point, you should disclose those to your partner. Because again, you've already done the work to vet them as a safe person for you and a compatible person for you. You are working towards building to a goal. At this point, they need to know the full picture. So make sure you're finding out if they're having any struggles, mental, physical, emotional, and vice versa. Offer that information to them. Because depending on what's going on in someone's life does change the way that you need to approach them. And again, and that's part of where you use that garage time, because mental health is not stagnant. You may be fine now, but in 6 months, you might find yourself in a big depressive episode. It's not bad, but just make sure you're communicating with your partner so they can help you with that.
Yep. And what I was writing here is dynamic is you're building the future together. It is what you're doing. You're building something that you're going to benefit from. If you're not willing to disclose, you know, no matter how uncomfortable it is, if you're building towards a future and plan to be with this person, you're going to start to show the mental illness, the medical problem. They're going to notice it, and they're going to feel like you're holding back, and distrust will begin, and you could lose a partner. Because even if you tell them like 8 months in and go, I just was scared, I didn't want you to judge me. So for the last 8 months, I've judged you as someone who's lying to me, and I didn't know it was this. I began to think it was this. Like maybe even they thought you were cheating. And even if you're polyamory, you can cheat. Cheating's still a real thing. I hate people who are, well, I'm polyamorous, I don't have to tell anyone. No, you have to negotiate that with the human being. We have a rule. If one of us is doing something in my polyamory relationship, I need to know they're doing something with someone else. I don't need the blow by blow. That's their call. I would like to be their friend. I'd like to be their support system. That's what I want out of it. I don't want someone, and I wouldn't want my polyamorous partner to be like, oh, you don't have to tell me anything, especially with STIs and all that. Come on. Yeah, I want to know. I want it there. And a quick hello to Nicole and Cryptic who have joined us, and Little Sub also. We had some comments filtered, so if I don't read them, understand it. And we got some yeps and yeses and absolutely agree from Little Sub. And we had a question. How about, and this we're going to take the question now, how about how it's mutual power exchange? So this is, I guess this is the heated, I feel like we should almost do a special on this, the power exchange. Maybe we could do that as our first, because I feel like this will suck up a lot of time, and we're already, I think, where are we? Where's my timer? We're 35 minutes in. I don't know if we could cover, is submission a gift? Is submission a power? How does power exchange work? I feel like that could be a standalone pet thing. What do you think, Alice? Can we do it quicker?
It really could be its own conversation, because this is where I struggle, where you have these one sentence ways that people describe things, and I'm going to go to my tissue paper analogy. Like, offhand, initially, it looks fine. It seems to be appropriate until, like I say, you hold that up to any kind of real pressure or critical thinking, or say you get the tissue paper wet, and then it kind of starts to disintegrate a little bit. So I'm not saying the mutual power exchange is disintegrating. I meant more the whole submission is a gift idea. Because I don't know about you, but for me, a gift is only a gift if I don't have to put any more work into it. And I've never met anybody who doesn't have to work on a dynamic.
I think we'll put a pin in this, because I think there's a lot on the bone for this one, as they say. We're going to do, we'll do the very next episode of Pet, unless something big comes up, is going to be, is submission a gift? Is dominance a reward? What is power exchange? I think I feel like we could talk the entire hour, if not longer. I think that'll be exciting. And we didn't really get to prep this. We called this out sometime last week. I think it was Wednesday we talked about it, and then talked quickly, and I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead with it. If you can be on it, be on it. And we only started advertising this, I think, Saturday morning, maybe.
Yeah. It hasn't been long.
Yeah, this one will have 2 weeks. And I don't do that on purpose, I promise. Being a single dad, having some stuff going out. You know, every so often you get outed. You have to deal with that. What can I say?
Yeah.
So
life happens.
Yeah, we will deal with that. It is summer vacation. I've had things in my life, like many of you do, that we don't talk about on screens, because it's not the world's permission to be part of it. Vetting doesn't mean you get to come in and conquer someone's life and give the world, everyone, their information. So, you know, understand that me and Alice both have things going on a lot of times. So we will do this as its own issue, give it the dedication it needs. That's a great topic. Thank you for bringing it up. Quickly, I'll just say this: you empower each other. 100%. It's about empowering each other. Because the dominant, when they're dominating in the right frequency for the submissive, it allows them to be free in their submission. And in a world where everyone's told you have to be aggressive and dominant, it's sometimes weird. Sometimes you need the right person to unlock those parts of yourself. And for the doms out there, I think it's very important that they find a person that won't hate them for expressing who they are. Because I'll tell you, man, and this is going to get me some hate mail. Just, send it to kinkeducator@gmail.com. But I didn't get introduced to kink. Kink was part of me, and it became crashingly clear as puberty took over. So I didn't get someone to give me a book and be like, how cool is this 50 Shades of Grey? I didn't have someone be like, oh, come to the club this weekend. I was looking it up as the internet was being born, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. So that's how I began my journey. So for me, it feels a lot different. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I really like the way you put it, allowing a dominant to authentically express their authentic self.
Yep. 90% of the time, I'll tell you, I'm dominant at work. I was a manager. I'm sadist. I struggled with that. I struggled with that because that popped out when I was having altercations growing up in a city like New York. So there was a lot there that was messy. And finally finding someone who understood me, who was like, no, lean into that. I like that. Let that out. Let that come and play with me. Oh my God. I say it all the time. The reason, and people get up about this. Some people hate when this term is used. I feel like my shirt's not right. I'm going to have a nipple slip. There's a lot of times where people just don't get that we are these kind of caged people who are just waiting to be accepted for who we really are, and how authentic and amazing that is when someone just looks at you and goes, do the dirty thing. And when like people get sensitive about that online, we're told we're bad. I have to make a video about some guy who's calling himself a neurospicy therapist. I was like, oh God. Called a kink, I swear to you, not being attracted to someone because they're a good parent. I'm like, that's not a fucking kink.
I know what you're talking about, actually, and I kind of had a similar reaction. But hold on, I'm gonna grab your ADHD and shirk it back towards the conversation of dynamics.
That was dynamic. It was answering. We were done. It was a little something.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that was the short version. I can fill an hour. I can fill an hour with that. But no, go ahead. What do we got?
So we've gone over setting aside time for garage time. We've gone over discussing communication styles and needs, like how frequently do we need to communicate. So what's some of the other critical things? I mean, to me, I know you have more, but all I can think about are the meat and potatoes of what sort of either rituals, areas of life that are going to be really pulled into that dynamic. Like, to me, I think of it as like the meat and potatoes of a dynamic. What are the rules and what are the rituals and what are, I don't know how to explain that.
I think that's so interpersonal though, isn't it? Like
it is. It's so dependent on you and your partner, and it will not be the same between any two people. Even for a polyamorous person, their dynamic with person A will still be different than their dynamic from person B.
You know what we haven't talked about, and I completely agree. And again, we might do a theme every show. One of the things I think we should do as a background, set aside 15 minutes, talk about, well, what would you need if you were setting up an age play? Either adding it to your dynamic or just going over it. What are the special things age play needs? And we'll do that for episode 2. We'll have the undercurrent theme be age play in a dynamic. So if we have time, we'll spend 10 minutes just going over, here are special considerations for age play. Yeah. But I think that what we haven't talked about yet is safety. A dynamic, more safety, right? Because now you're walking more away from safe words or say green light, red light, because you want to kind of experience each other, right? So you're pushing a little bit more. You're trusting your partners to be there. Let's talk about that because I think that's hugely important.
Right. So I'm assuming that, that's like you say, you have already done maybe a scene with this person, but now you're moving to a dynamic. So I'm going to assume at this point you already have your basic safe words and safe signals in place. So you already are using the stoplight and the squeaker toy or whatever you have in place. So where do you go from there for a dynamic? To me, you add more safe words and or phrases. That's one thing. But also you need to talk more in depth about, how to explain this. I'm trying to think of how to explain, because not everything is as simple as a red, a yellow, or a green, right? Like in a dynamic, there's going to be nuance. And that's part of where having that garage time comes into play. But how do you, trying to think of how do you add even more safety into it while you're exploring?
I have a great example. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
So you know how we start with green, yellow, red?
Mm-hmm.
A dynamic requires putting in, maybe if your partner is asexual, perfect example, an asexual partner who's willing to engage in sexual activity every so often, have a color now that says that. Or in reverse, if you have a partner who has had, we'll say, issues, and we won't go dive into it, but any type of issue that has made them afraid of those types of scenarios, or that type of play all the time. It's not their fault. Sometimes they're just not feeling it. They're the turtle today. They're
Mm-hmm.
their shell. So you have a like polka dot. If I call polka dot, we're not doing anything that's, the sexy time. We're just going to do the touching, the dynamic side, the S&M exchange, that.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to fine tune it and add the things, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to find things out as you go. They're going to be, the longer you're with the partner, the more you find their triggers, and there are going to be tops that have a trigger, especially with the brat. Like, I'll tell you right now, my brat called me stupid, and they saw the change in my face, and they and said, "What's wrong?" Being neurodivergent, I had teachers calling me stupid. I had my mom tell me that she couldn't have given birth to someone this stupid. I must have been exchanged at the hospital. So
Yep.
there was trauma there. And even though I didn't safe word, I didn't back out, and I just played along, the look, the sudden change in the face, it had to be explored in that moment. And you know what? When it comes to safety too, you're gonna have to be okay with some. I'm gonna break a lot of hearts here, but not every night's gonna be a great night to play. You guys are
Nope.
gonna play some nights, and it's gonna be downright uncomfortable. You're gonna get to the end of it and be like, shit, what
Yeah.
just happened? And that's normal. That's natural. It does not matter how long you're together, because sometimes we think we can play, especially on the submissive side. You heard something, you have a family member who has a lump, they're getting it tested, you don't realize how much it's in the back of the head, you're in the middle of playing, one swing hits the wrong way, and instead of enjoying it, rage comes out. And Doms need to be aware that a sudden drastic change is not your moment to be like, who the fuck go. It is a moment to be like, hey, what's up? Untie them, put them on the floor with you, get right next to them, be like, what's going on, little one? Where's the problem? Talk to me. Something's going on. Same thing from the other side. Your dom ain't hitting right. They're kind of missing a little bit. Maybe they're distracted. Maybe because a lot of doms feel like no matter what, let's go. You signed up. You're the quarterback.
They got to be on 24/7. That's not reality.
Yep. Dancing monkey dance.
So I've always called these the mood keys. And literally, and they're kind of like safe words, but it's basically either words or phrases that I can give to set a mood, or you could use to some extent to steal it like a mood board, especially for like those partners who kind of wear multiple dynamic personalities. They say, like, sometimes you're a brat, sometimes you're a little, sometimes you're a princess, sometimes you're just straight the masochist. And having ways or finding a way to clue your partner into that. And the same for dominance. Sometimes you're in a caregiver mood. Sometimes you're in, a sadisty mood. Trying to share those moods and energy becomes way more critical once you're in a dynamic than when you're just playing for a scene. Because now, there's always exceptions to this, but it's a lot easier to kind of put aside the junk of life for an hour or 2 hour scene. You can't really do that if you're in an ever ongoing dynamic, especially if it's a 24/7, all the time kind of dynamic. You need to account for the fact that life is going to creep in, and regardless of the plans you had and how excited you were for them, your body, your mind, they're just not going to be there today.
And I'm just giving a heads up, 10-minute warning. We're at the minute mark before we're going to close down on TikTok. We will have a spillover. You guys, if you want to come into the actual StreamYard at the end of this and talk to us, and we'll go live on Free Hugs and Spanks at least for 20 minutes. 25 minutes to answer anyone's additional questions, because I know we've been teaching this class. It's been a wonderful experience. I want to say this: DOMs don't need to always, pick. This is important. You're the Dom. Yes, you're the master, but you don't always have to pick. You can ask your submissive, your partner, your human, not plastic piece, what kind of mood they're in. Especially if you know that you have a partner who is a submissive, who's a Brad, who's a little, who's a middle sometimes, who sometimes wants to be primal and just thrown down and made to comply. It's okay that they're not just given a script and doing what they're told to do all the time. Please be mindful of that. And I just want to say that, sometimes you're going to want to do something and it's not going to go right. You have to learn as the dominant, as the quarterback, how to turn on a dime when it comes to playing. Your partner's not into it. You're the dom. You're the quarterback. Change the play. They're not taking impact right tonight. Let's go to sensual play. Let's touch them. Let's bring them back in. Let's talk to them more. You're doing so good tonight, but why don't we try something different? Never tell them what's wrong with you. No one wants to hear in the middle of a scene, bitch, what's wrong with you? Come on. I hear the complaints about you doms. You make it like I don't want to be a dom anymore.
My number one tip to any and all kinksters everywhere: learn the power of I statements in expressing yourself. They will make things so much easier for you in conversations, and you will have less frictions in trying to explain yourself, such as, hey, I notice you don't seem to be feeling impact play tonight. Is something going on? As opposed to being like, you're not taking impact like you normally do. What's up?
You need me to be softer on you? You can't take it tonight, huh? Being a little bitch? Don't do any of that.
No.
You're a dick. That's being a dick. Unless you're negotiating that, and maybe that can get your partner back into it. Maybe they like to be egged on. If you're not getting permission to egg them on, don't fucking do it. They're human beings. Because so many people damage their dynamics slowly. It is a slow death of the dynamic instead of being Bob the Builder. Be Bob the Builder. Build, constantly build. When the bridge has a stress crack, get up there with cement. Don't jump on top of it and keep saying everything is fine. We're going to do some comments up here. Lilith says, I use another language in my dynamic. It's the best way to keep others out. I guess that's for public play, though. I would assume you're not trying to keep people out who are in the room. It's a little confusing to me. I feel you there, and that was disgusting. I don't know it was disgusting, but I'm sorry.
I think it was you playing as the jackass dom.
Yeah, and I hear this. These are things taken from messages that I get from people, and it's like, are you serious? I could never be that person. All right, we have 6 minutes before we got to call this off right now over on the TikTok. I'm going to start prepping the free hugs and spanks. What are your overall, give me the advice. I'm building a dynamic today. I run into you and go, hey, give me the one piece of advice that I should know before I make this mistake.
Ooh.
Do you want me to go first? I can.
Yeah, go with yours first.
So just off the top of my head, the number one thing I tell people is that communicating is so important. And I don't just mean talking about what foods you like. When it comes to kink, get used to talking about the aftercare and the afterplay. Learn them. Study them. I used to have this thing where I would never call myself a master until I mastered that human being's body. I understood what they wanted. I knew how to talk to them at all times. I knew how to, I wouldn't say manipulate them to do things, but play them like an instrument, like nudge them, kind of massage them and get them to be open to me, even in the worst moods. If I can get my partner to start from, I hate everything, just don't touch me tonight, to smoking a cigarette after, and that's a metaphor, you get it or you don't, then I did something right that night, because not only did it wasn't that I got to the cigarette, it was the fact that I got them to open up, to relax in between them, they shared me some bad news, and we talked about it. And guess what? If we don't get to the cigarette and it's just a hug, it's just as good a night. You're playing with human beings, not plastic pieces. And especially when you build a dynamic, it's not about one night. It's about all the nights you could keep having or you could lose depending on how you're acting. What do you got, Alice?
Mine basically leans into that. It's and this isn't even just dynamic, this is relationship advice, but you always need to keep in mind that you are both trying to build to an end goal. And so anything you feel like you need to express in the aim of getting to that end goal, express it when you feel the need within what parameters you've consented to. Like maybe it's a garage time conversation. Because like you said, dynamics die slowly. And I think one of the most toxic ways that happens is via resentment of things that were left unsaid or not understood by the other person. So
Absolutely. We are going to switch over. I haven't figured out how we're ending a lot of these programs. Follow Alice. Definitely the educator, one of the great educators on this app. We're going to do another one of these. And for tonight, I'm going to say that you are like me and Alice. I think the whole time we've been trying to make you guys know that you're playing with a human being. Don't lose that thread. We're going to give it 5 minutes in between. Alice, we're not going to pause on the YouTube. I'm going to run to the bathroom. So for just a few minutes, fill the space if you wouldn't mind, because this won't go off the air. This will be permanent, and there's no pause, unfortunately, right now in Streamer. That's the one downside. Just take it should only be 2 minutes for me to go to the bathroom. Take the 2 minutes to kind of fill the dead air, explaining something from your dynamic. Share it. I'll get to watch it later and know what you said while I was at the bathroom. For you over on TikTok, we will be back in 1 week for our next Kinks of Our Lives. I don't think we have a topic. We'll figure it out. We'll be here live on the TikTok as long as they let us, and here on the StreamYard. So I'll see you next Wednesday. Same kink channel, same kink time. Thank you, TikTok, for tuning in this evening and spending time with us with Pet. This will be back in 2 weeks. Alice?
I think I'm going to dive into the whole idea on the mood keys while you're stepping away for a minute, because my dynamic actually uses a mood board.
I love it. Do it. I'll be right back.
One of the most critical things for most people who I have a partner that is a nesting partner of mine. I am polyamorous. And with my nesting partner, the two biggest things we struggle with is what mood are we in? And as well as just making time for it, because it's so much easier when you're with a nesting partner for life to get in the way. So the way we have addressed the need for what mood are you in is we actually created a mood board. It's just a little dry erase board, and that's magnets, and we have some little symbols on it that represent different moods we may both be in. And we just move the magnets to the mood that we're in for that day. So we have one, I have one in this dynamic. I am the submissive for being in a little head space. I have another symbol for a middle head space. And I also have one for I'm just having a rough day, other than just taking care of me as you would any partner, regardless of kink. I don't want any kind of play. I just need to be taken care of. I've got some bad news. I have a sick family member, anything like that. I really recommend either coming up with those mood key phrases, words, or using some sort of like mood board to communicate to your partner. There's apps that can do it on your phone. It will be a huge benefit to letting them know where you're at mentally, emotionally, and what kind of play you may be up for. The other big thing is, how do you schedule play? Because scheduling it doesn't always feel the best because you really want it to be spontaneous. Nope, just schedule it. Just schedule playtime. it's always going to be better to schedule it and have surprise sessions than it will be to not ever have it happen at all, because life gets busy. Trying to think what else we got. So also with the mood board, I think it can be really important for dominants to also have a space to express what kind of mood they may be in. Because if they are in a space where they're needing some space or some freedom because they're having a rough day, you having set your mood at sadist doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be up for the mood of, oh wait, I had that backwards. Just because you set your mood token at masochist doesn't mean they're always up in the mood to play sadist. And it is two humans, so both of you kind of need to agree what mood you're in and if it's going to work for play that night, because dominants are humans too, and they sometimes need to be taken care of instead of just being your dominant.
All right, so at this point, I'll go back and find out what Alice said, I guess, in a little while. But at this point, we are going to bring in the free hugs and spanks community side of this, and this is going to be more Q&A. I'm sure it's going to take a few minutes to get a few people here. So in the meantime, someone got upset because of how I talked about pleasure doms, and I'm going to I'm going to own this one. I might not have done my best job making that video. I don't think, because a few people had mentioned to me privately, like, why do you have a problem with the pleasure dom? And it's mostly because I don't believe that many people who call themselves pleasure doms are actually trying to be kinky. I think they're using things like hot wax to hide and say, I'm kinky, but when their real goal is sex. And I'm going to have to go my own video to do that, because I do think there's a difference. I do think there can absolutely be a pleasure dom, and I don't think I stress that point enough. And sometimes, look, I'm going to do the best I can do every day, but it's not always going to be great. I'm going to not feel good. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be dealing with shit. Today, before this video, someone literally outed my information. TikTok stopped some of it, but like information about me that someone in a public position shouldn't have that much detail put out about them. Someone decided to out me, and this is the online community that is TikTok.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do, but that's the reality of the situation. So every so often, it's not an excuse. I'm going to own it. I'm going to go watch my video before I respond to that person. I'm going to take the time to watch my video. Sometimes I have that New Yorker speaking thing where I speak so fast, people misunderstand it. And a lot of people will watch a video once. I watch a video before I make a response 90% of the time. I do fuck up 10% of the time. But 90% of the time, I do actually watch the video twice. Because the first time I get really upset. And then the second time, I've re-recorded videos. You have no idea how many recordings I've watched. And I'm like, I know how he feels, but that sounds bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I re-record videos for the ones that I post multiple times because I just don't like the way I phrase something. And usually my videos, there's no emotion behind them. But I mean, as far as the pleasure dom, I can kind of see where in your video it came across very much like pleasure dom as period is not a real thing. So I think it could benefit from that rewatch and come back, because I do agree with you. I do feel like a lot of people will claim the title of pleasure dom where it's just trying to use the term dom for clout to get access for sex. I agree with you. I think that happens a lot. But what the other thing too is, and I know you feel it is a valid thing, because I've asked a couple people, and like in non-heterosexual folks, like especially like there's other terms for pleasure dom in like the lesbian community. They're just called stone tops. They're all about pleasure for their bottom. In that case, we're talking a sexual bottom, not a kink bottom. And that's fine. Nothing at all issue with that. But I've also talked with a lot of kinksters who, to them, the term pleasure dom typically means I am going to give you pleasure until I decide I'm done, even if the pleasure has no longer been pleasurable for you. And I was talking to my partner about this, and they're like, I actually prefer the term edging lord, because You're either going to get a whole bunch of them or you're going to get none of them. And that to me is what a pleasure dom is. I'm like, honestly, I like edging lord better too as a term.
I agree. I completely. And look, especially sometimes, and you saw this a little earlier when you thought I went off on a rant, and I did a little bit. I'm not going to say I did. My neurodivergent brain begins to think about what I'm talking about and forgetting to fill in some blanks, and that's just the reality of doing this. I've made probably between 4,000 and 5,000 videos. I'm not going to put out every perfect one. I'm trying so much harder on Kink Educator these days. You see the background. I take my time. I re-record it. I don't really let myself do, like, I told people this recently, that what we're live on now up there on Free Hugs and Spanks isn't a phone. That's not a phone anymore. It doesn't have the cellular. So a lot of times when I do my response videos, they go on there. And that stops me from responding when I'm out and about and angry. 90% of the problems I've ever had, I film them outside of my house. I'm not kidding, because I'm in the moment. Someone said something, and it's like, don't say anything, Rob. Don't say anything. No, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to record it. I'm just going to record. I'm just going to say what needs to be said. I'm not going to show. I got this. I got this. Hit the record button. Fuck you. Right away. Right. Okay.
I feel like I can tell when it's one of those videos. I mean, we've been talking together for so long. I probably should be able to at this point. But
Yeah, you can
but I
see.
get that. And that's also I've shared with you again, like my nesting partner, who's my longest running dynamic at this point in time, they are very ADHD, currently just doing that on their own, essentially. And like, you do this very common thing that I see them do as well, where you're in a conversation and you've got about 5 different directions you could go with a topic, and one of them becomes the shiny squirrel, and we are going with that shiny squirrel, even though you really wanted to talk about the 4 other squirrels. They're just not quite as shiny as that one.
In that moment, I have one person to kill, and I'm going to kill them tonight.
Exactly.
The other 4 will see me another day. And with that one, because I even, a lot of times I'll talk to Em later about it, especially if anyone comes up and has an issue with anything that I did. Hey, what's going on, guys? Feel free. We're just hanging out. If anyone wants to come on screen with us in StreamYard, let us know. We're just getting after our Power Exchange Together from our TikTok audience. I'm the one who has to read the comments today. Alice can't read them. she's with me in the YouTube.
Actually, I can't, because I have I'm on my tablet on StreamYard. I'm on my phone on TikTok.
Okay. Well, then you can be in charge of the comments. I was in charge of the first hour. But no, like, yeah, sometimes, you want to hit everything. And it's a big reason I've been taking so many notes lately. But sometimes when I start one of those videos, and I usually can make the plane land exactly where I want it to. But that Pleasure Dom one, if I'm being 100%, when I was talking about it, there was a lot more anger than I expected because of the way I've seen certain people in communities act. And I started having images of the particular people gaslighting other people, teaching horrible classes, seeing the danger that they were, and it all came flooding back. And I have to, as a neurodivergent person, I have to learn how to delete videos more often and not get to the 9-minute mark. I don't know why lately, but TikTok has been like, I'll do the whole 10 minutes and it'll just completely wipe it away. It won't even save to a draft or something like that.
That's terrible.
But I'll be honest, some of them, TikTok did me a favor. Because by the time I did it the second time, maybe it just notices when I'm yelling. And when I'm like, Pleasure Dom, because to me, first off, Pleasure Dom was not anything I really heard until 50 Shades of Grey came out. And I don't know if it was around. I think Leather said that there were people, like, it was an LGBTQ thing that, like you said, kind of got moved over.
Yeah. To me, Pleasure Dom is the cishet takeover of like what was LGBTQ terms of like a stone top. power top, that kind of thing. Trying to give it a different tone. And I definitely feel like, me personally, I feel like that term has exploded, especially with TikTok, of like people being pleasure doms. Because for me personally, and I know you've been in for 30 years, right? I've got about 13. It hasn't been until the last 3 or 4 years where I'm coming across people who are basically introducing themselves as a pleasure dom. Like, that's always kind of been this weird little like subcategory of just I'm a dominant, right? People didn't lead with that.
Yeah, I let my bias get away on that video. I'll tell you right now, I absolutely saw someone I've grown to despise in my mind, and I focused too much on that. And what I should have been saying was, from my experiences, I've seen some of these things, and these are very negative to me. Does it make everyone negative? That's the normal, like, clear-headed me. And that day, I even know the day I recorded it, and I was having co-parenting issues.
Yeah.
I was hot under the collar, and you know, it's that thing. It's the I want to put out as much content as I can. I want to answer these questions, because that was actually, I believe that was a response to a question that got me into the pleasure dom thing. And you know, sometimes I only got 5 hours to get things done because I got a lot of other things. You know, especially being a single dad. You know, I got a kid who wants my attention. You know, like these different things. And you know, I've been finishing a comic book project and lettering it, doing a lot of edits, and I know that day I was spent that day. Yeah. And I have to watch the video, and it's one of the ones I've been avoiding watching because I know I made a mistake, and I've always wanted to go back and kind of deal with it. But we have had over 1,000 comments in the last 30 days.
Yeah, it's been busy.
That's a lot to try to keep up with, and I'm doing the best I can. Should anyone give me a pass on it? No. Someone made a video about it, and I'm probably going to have to own some of it and be like, you know, this is very biased on my own personal experiences, and that's not right of me. And no excuses. Let's start again.
Yeah. But that's the way you handle it, is you accept where, you know, your bias came in that day and acknowledge it and then correct.
Yeah, and we talked about this. For those who don't know, today someone outed very personal information about me, and before we went on, I kept looking at Alice. I was like, time to be the dancing monkey. Because you got to bury it sometimes. We had a great conversation. I don't think many people realize how seething I was. Understand, I got outed probably 30 minutes before we went live. That is how close it was, and how, like, what I would have preferred to do was go to the gym, work it out, become human again. You know, neurodivergent, like, for those who don't know, when shit like that happens, rage doesn't cover it. Like, it is just hormones, and I had to keep telling myself, relax. You know, I wanted to become Venom. That's why I put the shirt on right now. On it today. But you can't. If you want to be taken serious, you got to sometimes just, it sucks, but you got to take the low blow and just keep moving. You know, I've had my well-being and people offering to cancel me because they didn't like what I said on a TikTok. I really want you to digest that. I had someone today who decided that they get to put out personal information. It's called doxing. We actually have a term for it, but in our lifestyle, we call it outing. And it is the worst thing you can do in our community. It is often thought of as worse than consent violations and being a predator. Like, the person...
it's not treated that way anymore, which just blows my mind.
But that's been the change, right? Now it's okay because we're all on social media. The person inside of me wants to track this person down very quickly, get as close as I can. I used to do this on Facebook. Like, there's a petty part of me. And I used to be able to track people down to their businesses, and I would call their bosses and share their videos with them. I stopped doing that, but, like, that was when you threatened my family or me. I went that far. You ever see Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, where they get the money and they go on a tour to, like, everyone who made a nasty comment with them online?
Yeah. Oh,
there was a moment I was playing the lottery just for that. Just for that reason.
Yeah.
Are you user 7582 kisses good?
We've got Carrie Ann in the comments, and there's some really good ones. First, talking about the pleasure dom is a new phenomenon. I fully agree. And then they commented sensualist as well as, and I believe that's around the whole, like, that wasn't the way you introduced yourself in the kink originally. Like, you don't come to kinky things as a sensualist. That's just, it wasn't a thing. And then too vanilla for me, but to each their own.
The sensualist that, and I'll have to watch my video, but like, there's nothing wrong with sensual play. The bigger thing, and a calmer-minded person probably explains this better. There's nothing wrong with sensual play. It's when everyone thinks everything's a sensation, so everything's sensation play. Everything's sensual play. It's not meant to be just feeling something.
Well, and I also feel like, and this is a problem where everybody's like, don't gatekeep, don't gatekeep. But for me, if you say you're a sensualist and part of your kink is just giving a massage before, adult interaction on TikTok, like, that isn't kink to me. You're just a vanilla person who likes massages. Like, that's fine. Do you. I'm not judging you for having that. But also, like, that's not... like, if you were to, on your dating profile, say, I am into kink, and your kink is giving me a massage before, adult interaction, I'm going to be very disappointed as a kinkster. Because for me, that's so mainstream in, like, vanilla sexuality, and that's fine, but it's not kink.
We were talking about this, watering down, the vanillification, and I warned everyone. I said I was taking it too serious. Today, I shit you not, someone claiming to be a therapist gets on and says not wearing a condom is a kink. Everyone's fucking kinky. Let me tell you, everyone, let's just get rid of kinky. There's no reason to, like, that's not a kink.
Well, and that's where I can understand the struggle, because I saw that exact same one. And I can understand, so this same content creator, they do actually engage in some kink behavior. Like, I have seen them off and on over the years. And they're trying to normalize kink to make it safe to be kinky. But instead, what they're doing is watering down kink. So now everybody's a part of it, to the point where the people who are actually looking for a set of folks who are into these, like, actually kinky things can find community, find people to get along with them. If we have people coming over who just like the idea of not using protection, like, please, oh my God, the floodgates you just opened. Dear God.
Well, it's also not the education. You want to know what kink is? I think from now on, I'm going to say this. I'm going to write it down what time this is so I can come back, watch it again. To be kinky, you need to learn.
Yeah, and it requires actual education. Even that to some degree, because given today's society's current education on things, there's certain areas where just safely engaging in adult interactions requires self-education.
I am just blown away by some of the things that people say.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I also wanted to just make everyone clear. I get a lot of videos sent to me these days, and people wanting my opinion. Sometimes I don't think it's worth it, and I'll just tell the person. It's one creator. It's got like 200 people following them, and this is just them speaking for themselves. If it's an I statement, if they're talking about how they're doing it, even if it's kink shaming and it's not, like, I tend to call out the people who are trying to get views by kink shaming, not someone who's accidentally kink shaming. I think there's a huge difference there, and I need people to be aware of that. I did not see, though, there was one thing that was said here, and I was curious about it. Lilith said, how is it too vanilla? I don't know what we're talking about. Neurodivergent moment, completely lost. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm curious what you mean. How is what to vanilla? Because I think you put that up at a specific time. And the biggest issue with comments is they don't always come in at the time that you send them, and we don't always see them at the time you send them. So we don't know what they're in context to with the conversation.
And there's no timestamp. So I can't even try to guess at this point.
Right.
Like, what was that? Like, what were we talking about? And the whole gatekeeping thing, you know how much better this community was when it was fucking gatekept? There was a reason we gatekept. And it was because dumb people were kept out. Dangerous people were kept out. People who were trying to be sensation doms, or sensual doms. These were things that would be like, no, you don't belong here. Go to fucking Tinder. And now those are let in. Now, can there be someone who enjoys just getting someone off? Absolutely. But are you kinky? Is that domination? If you're just getting them off, is it domination? And that's a better way to kind of address it and have that conversation. When does it become domination? You giving me permission to touch you, is that domination? No, it's what you want. Domination is you telling me I can touch you in all these ways and me deciding how to do it while I'm also making you feel under thumb, not pressured, but as though I am not stopping to ask you, even though we negotiated, I'm in control. I'm doing this.
Well, and
that energy.
For me, in the case of the pleasure dom, because again, this is where terms have such a gray area. If you're a cishet person saying you're a pleasure dom and all you like to do is just get the other person there, okay, you just like to make sure both of you are getting to the parade when you have an adult interaction. Congratulations, you have met the bare minimum of healthy adult interaction. You both enjoy the time you spent together. If you are taking it to we're going to go there again and again and again and again and again and again, or we're never going to go there, we're just going to get real close. Like, now that starts to become a little bit more of that kinky angle on it. If it's just, I like to make sure we both have arrived, that's not in itself a type of domination. That is just some sub part of how you like to dominate. But that's the issue. That's the issue, is people come in saying that they're just that because they like to make sure you both arrive. That is a good thing. It's a good thing to want to make sure all parties have a good time. But that's not necessarily a kink, because kink isn't inherently sexual. And you having a kink that's only about sex, and what to me should frankly be the attempt at a vanilla standard, you're going to make kinksters disappointed when you're saying you're into kink and your kink is just, I like to make sure we both arrive.
Yeah, and I just want to, first off, I remember when pleasure doms were called what most of them are, swingers, and I like when they identified it as swingers better. But being open-minded here, the stone cold, and I am not an LGBTQ educator, and I am not a sex ed educator. I do kink, but I do want to acknowledge something I know for certain. A stone cold top, you know why they were stone cold? I know Alice knows this. It's because they didn't want anything in exchange. They wanted to get their partner off. That was what they were doing. It wasn't about them. Show me one man who calls themselves a pleasure dom who doesn't want to get something for what they just did, or use their body to get off and call it pleasuring the other partner.
Yeah.
On top of that, a bottom that is cold bottom, a stone cold bottom.
It's a pillow print. That's the original term, pillow princess, in the lesbian community. And guess what? The hets took it over and have kind of destroyed the term and made it like, oh, pillow princess, oh, you're a terrible person. No, that is a very valid type of sexual role in an LGBTQ sense, where you only want to receive. You do not want to provide or give out. And again, that, like, it's where we try to take over terms from communities we don't belong to seem like we're in the know and seem like we're cool.
Like passive consent. I don't know. And I guess I'm gonna have to eat pie on this. I'm sure there's some crow for me to eat because of something I said where I didn't say it right. And I'll address the difference is I'll address it. I won't double down and be like, well, if you watch 10 of my videos, I clearly show you what I mean. You just have to watch 10 videos. If I say something that can't stand up on its own, I made a mistake. It's that simple. Do I believe there are people who have hijacked the term sexual dom? Yeah, but that means I can't say every single person has done that. And you know, whatever they're calling themselves, doms, the sensual dom, edging even edging. Is that really a kink when it's forced? Yeah, because there's a dynamic behind it. But if you mean edging and just means to get someone off once, that's not edging. Even if you're stopping them from doing it, it's not really edging. Edging is usually like hour of doing it, not until you decide to do it. I don't know. Sometimes
I,
gatekeepers with kids.
yeah, that's the problem. Is that's where it almost comes down to like, what do you determine? To me, like for me in my experience, I have typically found where if somebody introduces themselves as a pleasure dom as their main thing, I typically find that for somebody like myself who is a masochist, who is into a lot of what tend to be more on the high risk profile activities, so I'm not going to call them edge play, but high risk activities, I typically will not engage with them because if their main thing is pleasure, that as somebody who also plays asexually, it's not going to work. Like it's not going to work. But even in the case of somebody who may be into forced arrivals or edging, I still typically like, that's still not always the first thing they say, and that's fine if that's all they're into. But again, that's very much a sexual play as opposed to a kink. Because for me, I always think of kink as non-sexual first, sexual second.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes shit gets a little too complicated because we've allowed things to get down a bit. Like a pleasure dom. No one needs someone to be a pleasure dom, in my opinion, the way the word sounds. Now, if you were to tell me, like, I want to be a dominant person who uses domination along with pleasure things, that makes sense. Is that how it's being applied from what I've seen? No. So there needs to be that conversation of vanilla people trying to hijack kink to get off. And for the kinky person, they are left like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I was told I was getting vanilla ice cream. You gave me strawberry. I was supposed to get rainbow sprinkles. You put sugar on it.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. And I think like you, and I think that's probably some of it too. And it would be an interesting study if you could do it to see the people who, and I'm not shaming them for thinking it's a valid term. It's more, I would be curious to see the age, like the kinky journey age, the people who don't understand why pleasure dom is kind of this weird phrase. How long have they been in kink? And I'm just saying that because for me, I can see, and I've only been in it, like I said, a little over 10 years. I can see where a lot of people are using the term pleasure dom as kind of trying to get kinky clout to just access sex. Because what a lot of people don't realize is on some corners of the web, it has been shared on repeat that the website we use to find friends and find events to go to has been told as the kinky Tinder. And that's a real thing that has happened for at least the last 7 to 8 years, basically since 50 Shades. And so you and I kind of clock when people are sometimes using kinky terms for clout to access more ability to sex, as opposed to using terms because it genuinely describes their kink. So this weird radar that you and I probably have, that not everybody, especially newer in their journey folks, will not have had that radar tuned in as much. It's not bad. It's just a situation.
And we've also talked about, are certain things kinky? Like, is just choking, is that really kinky anymore, considering how vanilla it really is? There's a
Even
difference.
though it should be, because that one actually requires additional formal education.
Yeah. But even like hot wax. Is hot wax kinky at all? I don't, mind you, I'm very fucking kinky. So to me, it just might be a measuring stick thing where that's the bottom of the stick and I
I
don't see it.
For me, that's very kinky light, I put it. But again, you and I are both people who tend to play on the higher risk profile activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
But how is it kinky? If it's at every sex shop, if you see it in movies when vanilla people are doing it, it's like using ice cubes. Is that a kink?
yeah. And that's the problem, is it's always going to be this catch-22. As kinksters want more acceptance in mainstream society, certain things that used to be kinks are going to water down, and other things are going to be called kink that most of us would feel are vanilla. And we're going to have this weird muddy area where, like, the fresh water meets the salt water. That's all I can think of is the rivers down in Florida where you've got the brown water meeting the clean fresh water.
Oh,
Um,
what's that called? There's a term. I'm not going to
yep,
know it now off the top of my head. Murky.
but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have this weird muddled area where it's very gray. And a lot of those things fall into that. And I do think we're like, the term pleasure dom for me and you is almost an orange flag. It may not be to some people who tend to play on the less risky activities in kink.
I just think that if we're still losing our jobs, if we're still being outed as dangerous, then at least, like, you vanilla people claim the shit that is okay. So we know what we have to hide. Because I almost feel like it's like trying to lower our guard. You go to that place where they're like, we're kinky. All they do is hot wax, and you talk about kidnapping a person. Suddenly you get a phone call to the cops and you're being investigated.
And I think that's the real problem is, and somebody commented, but many things that are vanilla are actually kink that's just been widely accepted. I don't disagree with that, but you're pointing out the safety concern of, okay, so, we've, like, the whole choking thing has now been this widely acceptable mainstream kink. But if I tell you I want to put a bag on somebody's head, it's still breath play. I'm still doing breath play activities. I'm not saying anybody should do that. But it's still a breath play. But now I'm getting side eye and weird looks. So where is that line? Where do I know I'm safe to actually talk about my kinks as opposed to where I'm going to get shamed for them?
History lesson. So the term kink, not the word. The word is in dispute. There's a something about a Viking, and there's another thing about how it really comes from this French word, and then there's an English word. So the word kink, we're going to say it's when it deviates from the normal path. That is officially what a kink is, right? So vanilla people started to call anything they felt wasn't normal a kink. It was the turn, it was the deviation from the normal. So if something is getting widely accepted by the definition of kink, it ceases to be a kink. We didn't make the word. That's the one word we do keep a couple words cool, like freak and deviant. But the actual initial word kink really is just something a vanilla person wouldn't do. So if vanilla people are doing it, it's not deviating from the normal path. It is the normal path. It stops being a kink. I think that's what people don't realize right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything is a kink. Not everything's a fetish. And we had that. And I remember it was 50 fucking shades of gray and everything was a kink. Let me put on FetLife. I'm a kink now. Let me put on FetLife. The bikini is a kink and it's a fetish. First off, if it's a fetish, that means someone that you're having intercourse with has to wear that for you to finish. If that's what you're telling me, fine, it's a fetish. But if you're not, and you just have an attraction to something, that is a fucking attraction. It is not a kink. And we get that. It's a preference. Like, oh, someone has to have curly hair for me to date them. If that's true, it could be a fetish for you. Valid, but it's not a kink. A kink, because curly hair is normal, isn't that. But if you said to me, oh, I love blue-skinned women, Oh shit. Now that's a kink. Because someone's got to be willing to make their skin blue for you or not be breathing and you're into necrophilia.
That took a turn.
All right, we got 5 minutes and then we're out of here. Let's get it. Someone's talking about our kink is becoming flavors, and I it's always been kind of flavors, but it's a lot of vanilla adding toppings that aren't kink, and they're trying to make it kink. But many things that are vanilla are actually kink that's just been widely accepted. No, it stops being a kink at that point. If you're not going to lose your job for it, when your boss finds out, it's not a kink. I smack my wife on the butt every so often. It's fine, Jimmy. You're fine. No, I mean, I put her over my knee like she's a little girl, and I go hog wild. I'm aiming for black and blues. Jimmy, you're fired. There's the difference, kids. Next time you want to talk to someone about it, would you get fired if your boss found out about it? That's how you discover how quick it is to be a kink.
Mm-hmm.
I put hot wax on my partner. Who gives a shit? I burnt her. I put fluids on her and set her up like I was Kane from wrestling. Yeah, you're fired.
I branded her.
Cold branded her. Wasn't even good enough to do it hot. I cold branded her. Yeah, Google it, kids. All right, what do we got? Last two comments. What vanillas don't do is learn about the safety. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get in trouble for that mockery. I think wax is an example there. It is. It's so vanilla.
No, but it's a perfect example, because how many people do wax play actually learn that the candles that are $1 at the Dollar Tree are too high a temperature to safely use for wax play? Not many.
I'll say this. I know someone who would call themselves more than likely a sensation dom, a sensual dom, whatever you want to call it. And they taught a wax class, and they taught it horribly. Now, I never gave a shit about wax. I was one of the people who probably got those dollar candles at a point, didn't know about melting rates until I burnt a partner at one time. And then I was like, oh shit, they bought the candles, so it wasn't on me, but I learned very quickly about burning
wax melting point.
Yeah. So this person uses crock pots and says, oh no, there's no problems. You should put oil on. You'll never get a burn. Use a crock pot. The temperature is regulated. No, it's not. You should put a thermometer in there. By the way, the oil, just like when you oil your chicken, it keeps the heat in. So oiling the human makes the burns stay more.
I was sitting here and you said, oh, use oil. And I'm like, are we trying to fry them? Because that sounds terrible.
But this person sounded confident. Sounded like they knew what they were doing. I didn't know at the time that they'd already been warned to stop teaching that way because people were getting hurt, and people continued to get hurt. But I'm a sensual dom. I don't care that you're burnt. Can I stick it in now so I can be sensual? I'm gonna get a letter about that one too. Rob, can we talk to you in the office, Rob? You heard that we met the kink god last night, right? So the kink god's not going to be happy. Luckily, I'm the kinky devil.
Yeah, I'll have to ask you on that one some other time.
Oh, it's live, and we are actually going to put that live to we're downloading it and putting it on the channel probably tomorrow. So it's going to be a watchable thing. I even talked to Sage and said, I'm going to put this on a highlight reel. You have to see the expression on my face. Like,
I'm looking forward to it.
You can just see it. I lit up. I'm like, I've had a bad day, and I've been waiting for someone to raise their hand and be like, me, sir. Me, humiliation.
Oh, God.
I consider it a consent. If you come in and talk so much bullshit, it is now consent that you want to be mocked. I can actively mock you. You have given. It's like bratting.
Isn't that literally the contract of the internet?
Yeah, but
if you come in here and say some screwed up shit, prepared to be humiliated and shamed into leaving the internet.
Don't forget the theme, the pawn, the owned. You know, like some of these people are new to the internet. They've been here 10 minutes and they don't understand I'm playing nice. I don't have to play nice. You don't want to see the other side. You know, oh, you have a reputation. You have a sheet. No, I don't. I have passed every background check I've ever had to because unlike most people, I don't film the activities. Deal with witnesses. Did you see that? We're going to leave after this, but it was really funny. Did you see the TikTok where the guy had a very calm voice and he's like, someone broke into my house. Why would I call the police?
Auntie. I'm telling the aunties. I follow them. They're great. I love them. Oh yeah.
They were like,
paperwork.
That's witnesses. I'm telling you, I could have grown up in this decade, and I would have been like, "You're not filming me doing that dumb shit." I'm like, "No. Your stupid doesn't affect me."
I am so happy that YouTube was just becoming a thing when I was a teenager, because my stupidity is not on the internet immortalized.
Really quickly, I do want to catch Lilith's comment on the way out. Mummification, back row, third seat. No, mummification, that, like, if you've never been, like, put that, like, saran wrapped or something, that is, a lot of people suffer from claustrophobic that don't have claustrophobic in that moment. It is so different. I had people, like, literally do this shrink wrap on me as a joke at work, just because we were fucking around one day when it was snowing and we had nothing else to do because all the trucks got canceled. So they asked if they could do it to me, and I was like, sure, I don't care. I don't have much of a survival mechanism in my head. I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And I not only sweated profusely, but freaked out and made them stop. I could not. I was like, okay, no, this is too much. Like, I could do the water torture and just be like, fall asleep during it, more than likely, wouldn't care. But that mummification, that was no bueno. No bueno. It got very quickly on the hard limit. That's when I first started to discover there is a level I get claustrophobic.
And a lot of people don't realize how dangerous that can be for heat stroke.
Yep. So we have more topics, of course, to talk about, Alice, in the future. We're going to be excited to bring them all to you. As Alice said, BDSM is not inherently sexual. It is mental. We think about it. We negotiate about it. We throw classes about it. We talk to people about it. We use diaper. Did I ask permission, extensive representation, and then ask for consent? Only knowing play and risk profiles. That's been the whole point of this. Building dynamics. The back part got a little funny, but the beginning was solid about PET, Power Exchange Together. So meet us back here in 2 weeks for it when we do another class. Remember to stay kinky, my friends, and Alice gets the last Take us away, Alice.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. We'll hope to see you guys here in about 2 weeks for another session together where we'll talk about, I don't know what, but something to do with kink.
Well, the next one, actually, just on the way out, we did actually do it. It's going to be about submission as a gift. Domination is a reward. What is power exchange? And the under theme is going to be age play as a dynamic. So appreciate you all. We'll see you then. Alice, as always, we'll talk soon. This Saturday, I am having kind of a thing for my community, but anyone's going to be welcome to come ask questions and just bounce ideas off of me. I will be there for it. Hopefully we can, there are going to be a few people who I want to kind of get together too over the weekend, maybe, or sometime soon, and talk about some, just the general things about going ons in this lifestyle, how we can improve the educational value. So thank you all for your feedback. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to say goodbye to our TikTok audience and our YouTube audience tonight at the same time. And there goes TikTok, and here goes that. Thank you, Alice, as always, for co-hosting, and we're out of here. Oop. Hold on. We're spinning. Spin, spin, spin. There.